And I think we are live. I'm going to wait till I see some responses in chat, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing started. Hopefully audio, everyone can hear me. Things are set up and good to go. I see a hello from one person. Got to give everyone a chance to get into the stream and get started, get set up here. Everything is perfect. Hooray, look at that. Excellent. Everyone, it is great to see you again. We are here with another Knights of Honor 2 Sovereign Dev stream. We're super excited to be chatting with you as always. I have with me today our guest, Veso. Veso, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody.
How are you doing today, Veso?
Great.
Yeah, good.
Can't
Excellent.
wait for this.
Yeah. We had to triple check all of our settings here because we're doing a little bit of a different setup. Veso is actually streaming from his home office now, right? You guys are all in different individual offices as opposed in the big office, right?
Yep.
I love about
that's correct.
You don't even know where people are. It's all just virtual at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So
it wasn't very hard. I mean, we kind of saw this coming, unfortunately. So we tried to prepare ourselves a bit before the lockdowns and all that happens. Even did rehearsals about how all the organizing virtually would be while still in the office. So at the end, when we had to do it, it just took us like how they will done. It's almost a month now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think it's a reality that everyone out there in the world is dealing with right now, trying to get used to this virtual workspace. So as a kind of a starting message, hope everyone out there is staying safe and staying at home and probably enjoying some extra time playing some video games. I know that I've been gaming probably a little more than normal, but that's not a bad thing for me. I'm actually enjoying it. It's been nice to catch up on some of my from my backlog and actually revisiting some games that I haven't played in a while. So I've been enjoying that. Really excited to have you on the stream today, Veso. I think we're gonna have a great show. We have a lot of topics to talk through with the Dev Diary, so I think why don't we just jump right in?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Brad. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. So just to kind of jump right off, this Dev Diary is about marshals and armies, and I actually think it's a really kind of natural connection to the one we had last time, which is the invasion conversation. So we're kind of going through the steps of war to a certain degree and talking through these different aspects. So for all the people that maybe haven't had a chance to read the diary or would rather see video than read a diary, can you maybe give us a little bit of a summary about kind of what this marshal class is in the Royal Court and kind of why the marshal is special and exciting?
For those who did play the old game, the old Knights of Honor game, they are quite familiar that this is the guy about wars. For people who didn't, you can imagine a medieval Royal Court, and then in case of a wars or rebellions or something like this happens, then you need a strong army. But that strong army also needs a strong leader that leads the army for you. And this is the marshal. He's a noble who is privileged to be directly under the king and serve as a kind of general leading, leading armies, training them, and all that stuff.
Excellent. And I think the it's the marshal is really that main class that leads armies. But there's some for the people that are familiar with the original Knights of Honor, there are some big differences on army leadership that we've talked about in this Dev Diary.
Yes, there are many differences actually. While we are trying to keep the spirit of the old game the same, we are also looking to expand and enrich that experience, which is already 15 years old, with a lot of new stuff, and give more possibility for players to be creative while playing the game. And one thing that we really wanted to do is to allow pretty much any character to lead armies, not just marshals. Of course, with all the factors, even the marshals are still much better and stronger. They possess a lot more possibility to grow in this particular field. But also sometimes it's interesting to have your, let's say, cleric supporting your invasion, or maybe a spy. And it's interesting combos. It's not possible for absolutely every character by definition. You have to build it for that. but it's kind of to explain more. We'll have to go deeper into the skill systems, traditions, and all that stuff.
I think it's actually one of my favorite changes. We talked about this, I think, even when we did the unveil at Gamescom earlier. We were talking about the idea of, and I still to this day I haven't tried this. Maybe I know we have a milestone build coming up. Maybe I'll try it in that build. But I want to see if you can actually play with like a full spy army or a full merchant army and actually have all the different armies being led by a different class. It's something that you couldn't do in the previous game, and I mean, it was I think it's really compelling to experiment with how you can use some of those different classes. I know for me personally, one thing I do is I use my armies to be my kind of force projection and go and send my armies out to fight my wars, and I use my my merchant army as kind of my policing force. So I don't have to tie one of my really powerful marshals up, dealing with kind of the the random rebellions that sometimes can crop up that you have to deal with. You really don't need like your super strong force to deal with, but you need some projection of power to stop them pillaging a village or whatever. And I love that added flexibility. I think it just creates a very cool dynamic to combat.
Yeah, there actually that's one of the use for this, like having a minor rebellion somewhere, and you really want to deal with it without bringing all the heavy armies for this. So you can quickly do that. But also they have their own flavors, those other classes when they're leading armies, and we still, as in the previous game, we can use army reinforcements in battle. So it's more than one character that can participate in battle. And then are interesting combos that happen here between, let's say, Marshal and the Cleric, or Marshal and the Spy.
Yeah, I
Which
know
is
that a big part of kind of the royal court's power is those skills, like and I thought I know we've experimented with a couple different ways that
yeah,
non-marshals can get armies, and I do like that we're kind of, it seems like we're starting to land on these skills, giving them that option and actually widening it up. I know at one point in development it was just one or two specific skills, and now we're experimenting with having different military themed skills, opening up that functionality, which I think is really cool. I mean, we'll see where we land at the end of this whole thing. We're still experimenting some, but I love how that's been evolving. And I think there are some things that you talked about with in the dev diary, or I guess the team talked about in the dev diary with how some of the different skills can be used in or leveraged to amplify your armies. So maybe can you talk about some of those? I mean, I know a lot of this is still changing because we're balancing and tuning and remixing things.
yeah.
But give the audience some examples of these military style skills and how they work for setting up your armies.
Yeah, it will be kind of risky to give very in-depth examples without going deeper into the skill system, because it's very deep. It's extremely deep and very flexible. But let's say, okay, I'm thinking how to explain this without bringing the big picture here.
Well, there's a couple that you talked about in the diary itself. Like, what about like Siegecraft? What is Siegecraft about? Like at a high level, how does that impact the player's use of their army?
Yeah, Siegecraft is a military skill. His primary skill for marshals, which instantly means that we have primary and secondary skills. And just we'll scratch on the surface, but for every character it's possible to learn as secondary skills other skills which are primary for other classes, which gives them some additional abilities and stuff. So Siegecraft is something which really improves the ability of your armies to lay siege or to defend on sieges, during sieges. Also, but that's not the only thing. It allows a more sophisticated siege equipment to be constructed and stuff like this. These huge trebuchet weapons, they actually was not in the reach for absolutely everybody back then. You had to have certain understanding and at least maybe some people who understand engineering and also can construct this efficiently or transport parts for it efficiently. So the skills has levels, just in the like in the old game, like 3 levels. And trebuchet is becomes available for you after you increase your skill enough. But then there is another thing. there are traditions for your dynasty. So you can imagine, like in England, the archery was an important tradition, so to say. They're famous with their longbows, and there are a lot of funny cases where the king says, okay, there is a order by the king, 2 hours a day, all of the peasants are obliged to practice archer shooting. It's a real thing. So the skills, we can build a traditions over them, which improves the skills for everybody in your kingdom. And also, if your king learns and knows Siegecraft, then it's logical for him to project this knowledge and push this Siegecraft, his skills in that over his kingdom a bit. So there are many factors that work together to make you combine and craft your character.
Wow. I really think that we're going to have a lot of deep dives in the skill system as we continue forward. I think there'll probably be a couple dev diaries down the road that go into specific skills. And I know that you kind of, for everyone that wasn't paying attention there, Veso actually teased out some functionality we haven't talked about yet, which is the which I love. I love it when I'm trying. See, I'm on your side, guys. I'm trying to get Veso to maybe talk about a couple things that you know, he doesn't want to, but it's still fun to see what I get him to say. Yeah, the traditions concept is a really cool enhancement for Knights of Honor that we will definitely talk about in another stream. I'll let you rewatch this video a few times to see if you can pick up some of the nuanced aspects in there, but there's some really neat things about how skills synergize with what you as a kingdom deem as important, and those are choices that you get to make, which is super awesome. Another skill that I always thought was really cool, and I know it's there's actually I think a couple different ways that this may happen. We talked about it in the and I think in a previous one, is that the having the skill that lets you move around the map faster, and being able to actually,
or strategist.
Yeah, strategist. And you know, having that kind of like a rapid response cavalry army that is able to move from one side of your border to the other, because sometimes, you know, a little bit lighter, maybe a little bit more exposed. If it runs into a heavy army, maybe it can't do you know, handle them on their own, but at least you have that kind of like first strike, you know, rapid response group that you can kind of move around. I always thought that was kind of fun. And that's another one of those moments where you're having like the skills and the army layout kind of synergizing with your you know, how you're building out those different projections of power across your land, which is awesome.
You know what's funny about this particular skill? Now, strategy is a primary skill for diplomats, which enables them to do some stuff. But it's also secondary skill for marshals. So marshals can also pick these skills, which are not directly military skill, but it enhances their stuff, giving them some more deep understanding of global strategies and all that stuff. So they can,
yeah. By the way, I think it's Quint ENV 93 was asking if you can decide the skills that you learn, just like Knights of Honor 1, and absolutely, you know, I don't like to use the word RPG, but sometimes it's the best way to help describe it. It's not really like a role-playing game. You're not like really dramatically growing and investing in these like characters per se. But there is, you are kind of making decisions about how your role court members specialize and what kind of usages they can have. You know, obviously every role court member, from the spy to the marshal we're talking about here, have kind of their class specific functionality. Like obviously merchants are there for trading, spies are there for espionage, there's actions that are related to that. But the skills really do open up a lot of opportunities to use those classes in unique special ways as opposed to just their defaults. And we talk a little bit about that in the dev diary, and it's actually what a great segue to one of my next questions, which is about kind of you know, I loved the story in the dev diary about the spy and using not just those military skills to lead an army, but having some of those skills like have specific changes to how that class could work. So I mean, in the dev diary, I talked about like the spy getting some of those benefits with like the archery skill that, you know, you'd think, oh, archery is just for marshals, but it has some unique aspects for spies as well, correct?
Yes, definitely. It's archery is a secondary skill for the spies. It's naturally a military skill, so it's for marshals primary, but archers can also learn this as a secondary. And That's actually the way how other characters can start leading armies. If they learn as a secondary skill at least one military skill, then they have an actual call to arms and they can make armies basically. But this archery skill enables for the spy certain events during the game, during the battles and stuff like that, and also enables special spy plots as well.
Yeah.
So, you know,
So
hunting
cool.
incidents happen, that stuff happen.
Hunting accidents, right? That's
Yeah.
very Games of Thrones there, right? The whole boar hunting accident scene or whatever. Now you can maybe have your own little hunting accident if you're archery skill with your spy. Yeah, it's really.
I think Game of Thrones was kind of medieval based also. I mean, those things happened. You know,
That's right.
the king goes to hunt the deers, and something happens.
Yeah, definitely. Just random, Stan, you have an awesome question about why we decided to revisit the Knights of Honor franchise. If you stick around for the end of the stream, we're going to do a Q&A session. Definitely want to talk about that one. So that's a great question. And by the way, just so you all know, keep the questions coming. We have someone that's capturing them and recording them for me, and we're going to have an entire QA session at the end of the stream where we actually dive into those questions and answer them. We also have some questions that I've pulled from the community, so we're going to be grabbing those too. If you haven't joined us in our community, you can go to community.knightsofhonor.com and get involved. We have an awesome forum community growing and starting out there. We definitely read them. I know Veso and his team are very active on there. Sometimes just as quiet listeners, sometimes actually getting involved in some of the conversations. And we take all the dev diaries are posted on our forums, and we take questions from them directly for every one of our streams. I'm sure Ivory Knight's out there somewhere. Yet again, you have an awesome question, Ivory. We're going to throw that out there at the end of the stream too. So please come on and get involved. We also have a Discord channel, a Facebook group. There's lots of ways for you to connect. So we welcome you to be a part of the community, and we're going to be taking those questions and answering them here a little bit later. So we've talked a little bit about the skills and everything. Maybe you can talk now about, how do you, so you have these marshals, how do you recruit your marshals? You know, what does that process work like? And, how does the payments maybe similar or different from the original Knights of Honor?
Well, in the essence, it's quite similar. You hire a guy, you don't have to pick from, let's say, set of existing guys and pick based on some values or attributes or something. So it's more like Knights of Honor. We didn't want to turn the game into a browsing countless number of characters and comparing numbers there. So we wanted to have them more like a white empty piece of paper, and then you make your character out of it. And they cost wages, they cost resources to maintain, and it's progressive. The more marshals you have, the more expensive it will be progressively. So yes, you can have a lot of them basically, but yeah, of course the members of Royal Family are free, they don't cost anything, but then you risk them, obviously.
Right.
So, but unlike the old game, now it's possible in the game to have other characters which emerge and come to you, or even get a rebel and pay him to end the rebellion and promote him to your court, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Maybe throwing a little bit of sweetness instead of using the hammer all the time to solve some of those problems.
Sometimes, yeah. You have to adapt.
Yeah, that can be very interesting. Actually, you have this rebellion leader that's a really good marshal, and it's like, maybe if I promote you, we can get this thing worked out, and you can go join our side. That's very much a cool emergent story where you can make those different decisions. I like that.
Yes.
You mentioned when you were talking about, and I know this is also in the dev diary, the kind of the costs that kind of go incremental. So I mean, I know it's a tuning thing, so I don't think we have a complete answer to that. But what is the design for that? Is it something where it's going to be extremely prohibitive to have a whole bunch of marshals? Is it something where it's more just making you think about it, but it's still something you can do? Like what are the kind of parameters around that incremental cost aspect of having a large marshal setup? It's the philosophy, I guess.
Yeah. One thing is, as you grow as an empire, for example, you would need more armies, definitely, but also you need to be able to afford armies even when you're smaller. But for me, it doesn't feel very logical to be very small, tiny kingdom, one province, and they have a court full of marshals, and then peasant rush, as they call it.
Right.
Yeah. So it's
like the Knights of Honor version of a tank rush from Command and Conquer, right? It's the.
That doesn't feel very entertaining. Another very subtle thing here, which some fans might question, but we feel like the game is so rich in possibilities and a little encouragement to try different combinations of characters also. We are not insisting on that at all. Actually, I really cannot wait to see crazy streams with strange combinations of characters in course, like 8 Spies, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's in a nutshell. It's nothing so complicated here.
Awesome. No, I like that. It makes a lot of sense when it comes to, having some. It's almost like a balancing act of growing your empire and deciding how large, or your kingdom, and how what size of the kingdom you want to have, and how you support that growth. And so the idea of oh man, I want to have a larger army. I want to field more marshals onto the field. I want to be able to project more power. Maybe I need to invest in growing my kingdom, whether it be developing the provinces I already have, or maybe going and taking what I have and picking off someone small next to me and getting their territory. I mean, I like that kind of gameplay aspect to it. So very cool. Are there any other before we move on to talking about armies more specifically? Do there any other maybe some cool aspects that you'd be willing to expose about marshals that maybe didn't get talked about in the dev diary? Something that you can tease the audience with?
Well, there are many actually. In this dev diary, it was really going very only on the surface, not really getting very deep, because there are many aspects of it. One interesting thing, probably, that I guess will be very interesting for the fans to hear, is we had to make a choice. If we have a battle which happens in the worldview and the battle which you lead yourself, what differences we are okay to afford? I mean, can we do something during the battle simulations in worldview, which is not directly possible to happen in battleview when you lead your armies, but will make the worldview much more interesting? We had a lot of meetings and discussing this in scones. There are a few things for marshals, and not only for battles and all that stuff in the worldview, which are does not directly translate into the battlefield. But at the end, we had to choose which of those two things is leading, which leads the fun of that game, and we think the bigger game, as we spoke on the first dev diary, actually, that's the worlds that leads. That's the most important thing. So it has to be right. I didn't say much. Yeah,
that's really. Well, hold on a second. Alex, were you okay? I think, yeah, I think we're good. Okay. There was a technical thing that happened real quick. I wanted to make sure it got resolved. Yeah, I think it's really cool having the different conversations about how we, like you said, improve that dynamic with the worldview kind of resolution of battles. And I know we'll probably have even more conversations about battles themselves, both the worldview version and the battle view. And for those who are maybe new to the Knights of Honor franchise, it is kind of a there's two kind of games going on here. You have the main game and what our real focus is, which is building this grand strategy, kind of paint the map, diplomacy, espionage, economy growth, province development, all those things you expect from a grand strategy game. That's like most of our game. And then we have real-time battles that can happen if you want to jump into them, and that's the key. You don't have to jump into them. You can resolve them in the worldview if you want, and let your armies kind of do it themselves. And I think I know we're still experimenting with some of these ideas, but I love the concepts of maybe marshals having different options or different ways to influence that auto resolve functionality. So if you're running around with a marshal and you get into one of those situations, you're like, I have a marshal. He has some really cool skills. I'm pretty sure I can just auto-resolve this safely and not deal with it. As opposed to maybe if you're a spy army and you get in that situation, you're like, whoa, man, I'm probably going to fight this one. Like, it's better for me to go into the RTS game and control the battle a little more. And having those different options, that's really exciting. So cool. That's a cool one to tease in. So let's get into the armies now. Let's talk about the armies aspect of this dev diary, and we have the martial side, the leading, and we also have the units that are there. So what's the first thing I think maybe you could talk about is again, this is for the people that maybe haven't read the dev diary. How are armies recruited? Like, how do you raise an army?
Well, for marshals, which naturally live on the map, it's pretty much like it was in the old game. They can go to any town we have control over and can recruit or just collect the garrison troops there. We tried to make it a bit more streamlined this time. So there are some interface issues with the old game do not exist in this one. Still, it's a work in progress, but at least we totally realized that certain things wasn't very easy to do in the old game, or to find how to do it. Other option would be, of course, mercenaries. You can go and when there are mercenaries available, you can hire mercenaries, but they're more expensive. You can even get the entire mercenary army and that's another way to have a marshal in your court. Not just recruit a guy, but get this Spanish company, join your court, and get the leader in your court as well as army. That's super expensive, but super powerful. And if you can afford it, if you can afford all the intrigues that comes with mercenaries, then you can can save you at some situations. And that's in a nutshell. There is nothing super strange here.
Yeah, I know that something that I really liked about the recruitment aspect is that you recruit armies. Mainly, you're recruiting armies from provinces. You're going to a province and you're raising an army, and there's still some aspects that we're refining about what the cost of those things are. But it takes population to make an army, so you have to have some semblance of growth in that province in order to recruit a certain number of people, and you can't just go into a province and hire an entire army right out the gate. It takes a little while for everyone to kind of be ready for that. One thing that I also remember from the original Knights of Honor, and I guess is this something that we're going to keep in Knights of Honor too, which is kind of having those some region-specific units, like units you can raise in certain areas. Is that something we're still keeping in this game?
Yes, and actually we have more types of units than from the previous game, and we wanted to cover more areas and get a bit deeper into the history of the world back then, the medieval world. So some exotic stuff is also available this time.
Yeah, I always thought that you were telling the story about the British longbowmans, and just like I like the archery aspect. That's always something it was cool. So being able to go, maybe you don't start in kind of the British Isles area, but you get inspired to go go on a conquest adventure, so you can start recruiting those longbowmen yourself. That's kind of a neat driver and motivator to maybe pursue certain types of combat, not just for the territory expansion. Now, in the dev diary, we talk about squads kind of having one second. So talking about how like the squads and like the battles themselves are being a little bit bigger, and the squad numbers are a bit bigger, and we're gonna have kind of this whole idea of bigger battles. Can you give us some hints on kind of what we mean by bigger? Like, how much bigger are we talking about here? Is it like 300%? Is it 50%? Are you not willing to say? Like, just so the audience has some reference on, what are we biting off? What can they be excited about?
Well, the most typical case is just the usual marshal as we know it from the old game, and back then they could carry 9 types of soldiers, nine squads of. It's a metaphor. It's not really a squad like a small platoon or something. It's just a representation, like in RTS game, for a certain number of people. In old game, they were fixed. So you had a squad of, let's say, archers, and it was exactly 40 something or 50, I don't remember. Now it's not fixed. Depending on skills, traditions and all the factors in the game, you might have much larger squads, much larger number of troops with you, and how much bigger there are skills which allows the marshals to carry more squads, not just 9. King naturally can carry more, and yeah, I've seen armies with 20 something squads in them.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
when one like this comes to you, it's very scary.
You can imagine. You gotta figure out how you're gonna deal with that. So I'm sure as we continue to test, there'll be a lot of balancing changes to that. So anyone out there in the audience, don't sit there and go, "Oh man, 20 armies. That's 20 squad armies. That's gonna be it." You know, that always can change. Yeah. But it's a good indicator of how we're thinking about it. We're trying to increase the way that players can experiment with army layouts and squad layouts. That's really cool.
I would like, sorry, just to add one important thing. It's not a technical limitation here. The technology which we have developed allows us to. We've tested battles with thousands of units, like tens of thousands or something. So it's a gameplay driven decision here. We're looking for certain experience, which we believe will capture the goodness of the old game and improve it.
Yeah, it's actually, I think, my favorite aspect of the Knights of Honor franchise. It's something that I loved about the first game, is it really was, and this does not mean simplified, but it was approachable. There was a lot of aspects to the design that allowed you to wrap your hands around what was going on. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I love strategy games. I'm a huge strategy game player, you know that.
Oh yeah.
And I spend countless hours playing these games. But I think that one challenge you run into is sometimes some games get out of control as you get further on. Like things just get more and more complex, and then you have hundreds of armies running around, and you're trying to manage everything, and your empire gets so big, and that can be really intimidating. And it's also when we have these kind of like really complex, large setups that can be difficult to even figure out where to start. Like you can't wrap your hand around what's going on in the game. And I love with Knights of Honor, even though there was a lot of depth and there was so much you could do and all these emergent gameplay opportunities, you still kind of had your hands around everything. And I thought that from a design perspective, that was a very clever way to still give the fantasy of this kind of kingdom ownership and exploring and fighting and managing a kingdom all over Europe, while still kind of keeping it within your head, keeping it under control. And that's a really nice way to balance it out. Now we talked a little bit about the different costs associated with armies in the dev diary and when you're recruiting squads. And something that I thought was really interesting that was talked about was that different types of squads may actually have different types of maintenance associated with them. Yes, like if you hire a mercenary, maybe they just they don't need the same kind of maintenance that other squads do. They really just want gold, and so the gold cost of that squad, yeah, that's all they care about. They're a hired arm. Is that something you can talk about more and maybe like give? I mean, what are the different ideas we've been experimenting with there when it comes to different maintenance costs? That's a different concept. That's really cool.
Food upkeep is a new addition to Knights of Honor compared to the previous game. We didn't want to make it super hardcore here. We wanted just to capture that fun and to make certain areas of your empire especially valuable for you. This breadbasket world, it exists, and every country has some area which they say this is our breadbasket. All the grain grows here, all the food comes from this area, and we wanted to have this feel. And also it's correct if you look at the conquest of William the Conqueror when he invaded England. There was maybe I could be very easily wrong here with numbers, but more than 50% of the actually cargo and people that moved was blacksmiths for the horseshoes or food for horses and all that stuff. So it's a lot of logistics involved here. So we wanted to have while our armies in our territory, then they do not consume food from their war wagons, but they just drain from the kingdom resources. When they invade and they're abroad, then sorry, they'll have to take care of themselves, and we decided to make food much more important. So for the players to be able to have this fun of planning an invasion, not just right click and that's it. It's a war. You're a king. You have to think a bit about before the war starts.
I love that aspect of added depth that we're exploring, which is there's these other considerations when it comes to raising an army, and that can drive, like, if you have a certain type of unit that you really favor, you may need to develop your province a little bit differently to support that unit. If you want to, I know something I liked, and one of the builds that I played recently was having to make conquest decisions based on resources that you needed in order to build or to support certain types of armies. It wasn't just about pursuing a unique unit in a territory all the time. Sometimes it's like, man, if I want to go and build up these certain types of units, I really need to go and acquire these resources because I don't have them. And that was something that also, I mean, that's a big motivator for war in the world, is acquiring resources to be used. And I think that's really interesting. Something that I also want to highlight to everyone in the audience, and this is another encouragement to join our community. You can maybe get hints that Veso, and not just Veso, he has a historian in the team. There's a lot of people in the Knights of Honor 2 dev team that are very big fans of history, and all of these conversations come up. And I would encourage you to jump in the community and maybe have some of these conversations about inspirations from historical times and whatnot. I've had quite a few of these talks with Veso over the last number of years, and I think it'd be awesome to see some of those. And it's one of those threads that I'm sure Veso and company would love to jump into on the forums. So if you guys are big history buffs out there in this era, please join the community and start talking with us. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, sure. Maybe as we progress further, we will increase our participation in Discord. Right now, I realize it's very bare bones. We almost don't actively talk much or something. We read absolutely everything. So everything that's posted there is, or in the community website, it's all of this we read and discuss in the office. And there was one particular person, not one, many, but one. We were saying, oh, is he actually looking for a job? He should apply. There was so as we progress, we will get more active and we will start talking more.
So the next set of questions I want to go into are about the squad leveling you talked about, and squads kind of being valuable the longer you have them and maintain them and whatnot. Can you tell us a little bit about how that works? And these aren't like skills, right? It's a different kind of system than the Marshal or the Royal Court thing.
Yeah, it's exactly as it was in the old game. They have 3 levels, just new recruits or who they eventually might become veterans. I'm really curious to hear the community opinion about it. So we are still wondering if we should keep this or if we should cut it, or if we maybe make it conditional to be available only upon certain conditions. But please, guys, if you watch this video, drop us a few lines on Discord or community website. We are very curious to hear what you think about it. I can explain where the question comes from. Having this system could result in the players not wanting to disband their armies in order to save resources or optimize their economy, or they might want to actually put and use the marshals as a mules, if you know this slang from those type of games, like bring the army to a town and then put the elite squads in the carry zone, then disband the rest and all that stuff, which is not exactly in the spirit of Knights. It's not about this micromanagement here.
Yeah.
So share your feelings, share your opinions about that, please.
No, that's a really good commentary, and I think maybe the people that are watching, you're starting to see a little bit of how these dialogues go on. It's something that I think when you're not in game development and you're kind of looking from the outside in, it's really easy to go, oh, add all these features or add all this different stuff. It all sounds so great, but there is kind of this psychological component that you think about as the designer, where if you have certain features or certain aspects, it can drive behavior from a player. And that behavior may not always be what you're trying to incentivize or where the fun of the game is. It may sound fun on paper, but when you actually look at what the downstream impacts of those behavioral changes are, they may not result in the gameplay overall that you're really trying to elicit. And I think the way that you pose that question is very clever. That there's a balancing act that we're trying to play between micromanagement and macro management, and really trying to drive the strategy element of the game, as opposed to having to do a whole bunch of low-level decisions that can be fun. I mean, it's not always a bad thing, but if it's a lot of people min-max, they start figuring out the right ways to do things, and if you open up those opportunities, you end up kind of incentivizing those behaviors and not really incentivizing the kind of gameplay. So yeah, we'd love to have some dialogue with you all about, what do we do when it comes to balancing out the growth and experience curves of units and how they gain experience and that kind of equity you build into them versus the flexibility and being able to just make decisions based on what you're strategically trying to do, building an army, managing your resources of your kingdom, those kind of decisions. And so I think there's a really cool commentary. So that's an awesome question, and maybe we'll do a follow-up on that if people start talking about it. We'd love to have that active dialogue with you. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit in the next Dev Diary as well, or the DevStream as well. So the last question I want to ask is about and I think we talked about this a little bit, I guess, in the skills section, but there's the kind of comments about kind of skill and army makeup synergies, and having certain armies being balanced with certain skills, or certain squads being impacted with certain skills. I know it seems like there's so many different aspects here. We could almost do a Dev Diary on that alone. I mean, there's so many ways that skills and squads kind of tie together, it seems.
Yes. So an example would be, but again, this will be more very, very basic without getting very deep into that. But unlike the previous game, now the place where battle happens in the world, which has a lot of it's important where it happens, and there are skills which help certain squads to fight better in the given, let's say, in forests.
Or in desert or something, yeah.
Or in desert. So here, I have to say this, we are not looking exactly the point where the battle happens. We are not looking at the province. We are looking in some larger area, and the metaphor is, which is actually rooted in history. The battles didn't happen in a moment or in a day. Often a battle could take like a week or 2 days or 3 days. There are different scenarios in history. So every time we say we have a battle in worldview, that actually means the metaphor is that those two marshals, they are maneuvering around in some area around where they engage. They are looking for best positions, to get on the hill or whatever, depends. So we allow for this, and when you choose your place where you fight, then you have to think, to go back to the question of blood, you have to think, okay, my marshal has these skills, he has this army, this type of army, so what's my best place to fight, in which region, or where I would like to fight actually.
Yeah.
Or maybe you build him to fight on certain places. So if you live in a desert, if this is your kingdom, probably you would like to have something which works better in the desert, and so on.
No, it's really, and I think there's it's really cool to think about those combinations of looking at, like, okay, what kind of squad do I want to recruit? Where would I recruit those squads? What skill opportunities do I have with my marshals, and how do I kind of combine those? There's a lot of kind of like mental gaming, where it's like, okay, what are the different ways that I can put these things together and try different strategies? I think that's really cool. So awesome.
Archery, for example, that's the most simple thing. Archery, for example, if the marshal learns this, and if this is the addition, then you'll have much larger archery squads.
So I would probably like that. I like the range units. That's really cool.
They don't work well in the forest.
Yeah, except when we're in the forest, right? So the last thing we're going to do, we have about 15 minutes left. Let's go ahead and jump into some questions. I'm going to be going back and forth between some of the ones that people posted on our different community aspects, as well as going through some of the ones that are answered to the stream. So we're going to start with a question from Discord, because this question came up twice from two different people. We have Vicious V and Beldroth that both asked, will there be any win conditions other than controlling all the provinces on the map in multiplayer? So if you don't know, audience, Knights of Honor 2 is going to be including some really cool multiplayer functionality. We're going to be talking about the multiplayer features in detail later. We're not going to be going into them now, but we are telling people that we're going to have a really exciting, as our hope, our target, our goal, to have a really cool multiplayer experience that you'll be able to play in the grand strategy world, where you'll be able to actually have you and a number of friends. We haven't decided exactly how many people are going to be there, but it's going to be more than 2. So it can be you and a group of friends that can play together. And the question, which I think is a really big one, and I'm glad it was asked, which is, are we going to provide different ways, different opportunities to win the game aside from just conquer all the provinces?
Absolutely, and, yes. They are already there. Yesterday we had again a multiplayer session in the company. So and it was quite fun because it was with this home office thing, quarantine and all that stuff. So it's also a nice test for our functions, like how we bridge the routers, all that stuff, connectivity, how it behaves when the internet is over Wi-Fi, for example, and all that stuff. So it was quite okay. Found some number of bugs, which will be fixed, of course. But yes, to answer to Vicious V, yes, we have we spent a lot of attention on designing multiplayer features, so they actually deliver something which I personally didn't see in any grand strategy game before. They might be, I don't know, but that's a long topic, maybe not for now. I want to ask Vicious V, where are you from?
It's Vicious V and Beldroth, by the way. Both of those Discord users asked the exact same question. I don't know if Vicious is in the chat, so we'll see if he responds. But yeah, I actually really like, very much so, I like that we're exploring some really creative, and I'm not going to talk about them now. I'm going to hold my own self back. But there's some really creative ideas to make the multiplayer experience super compelling. And it's not going to always be about painting the map. There's going to be different types of things that you can pursue to win. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun with it when we get them out there. Yeah. So moving on to a forum question, I gotta give props to my bro Ivory Knight. He's there every week, or every Dev Diary. I love that guy, and his significant other, because I know that she likes the callouts too. So his question was, what was the balancing target with regards to the replenishment rate of troop resources of horses, food, and population? So for example, when I defeat a nation's army, how quickly can they rebuild another? Are you trying to make battles feel very impactful, meaning long time to rebuild the army, or less impactful, meaning more reactive and a quicker time to rebuild the army? So kind of what are we trying to do there, and why? Like, what's the angle there?
Right. Well, we are still working on that, but the question is not about the details. I think the question, if I understood it correctly, is more about the direction here.
Yeah, well, what's our philosophy? What we're trying to do?
Yeah, philosophy.
We are for quick, responsive rebuilds.
Yeah. Well, we keep it approximately like it was in the previous game. We experimented with several different balancing, touching the numbers and stuff. And there is this uncanny valley which can happen. For example, if we have it very, very, very different than the old game, then you start playing and something feels wrong. It might be even a better gameplay, but at the end it feels wrong. Yeah. Not like Knights of Honor. But with that said, we actually don't look for the battles to be really a devastating thing. You need population you draw from population, they grow, it replenishes slowly. You won't be totally destroyed by a single lost battle, or 2 or 3, probably, or 5. But if you prolong your wars, then exactly we wanted to capture this legend, actually history, like this kingdom, the king was very militaristic and very expansionist, and he was trying to conquer everything, and his kingdom drained out of resources of people, and the people population is very, very important. So you can really, literally drain your kingdom life force, so to say, over a long war with many losses. So if it's a successful war, still it could create difficulties, but won't be so devastating on the economy. But if you keep losing, then there comes a point where probably the nobles will kill the king.
Yeah. I think it makes a lot of sense too, because you want to have an impact, but you also want time to have fun. And
Yes.
sometimes having fun is making a mistake and learning how to do it differently the next time. And if that mistake is the end of the game, or the end of your empire, that's a really big punishment. So I like the way we're talking about that. That makes a lot of sense. By the way, Baldroth and Kartacha are, Kartaka. I'm gonna one day get that name right, geez. Of course we got to give you something to come back for, right? Like you gotta get more people on the stream and get them coming back and wanting for more. So we can't tell you everything every time. We got to have a little bit of tease, a little bit of a dangle of the carrot. So yeah, come back and we'll be talking about the multiplayer stuff in more detail later. So let me grab some questions from the stream. So let's see here. We already answered the question. Quinty asked about, can you decide which skills you learned like Knights of Honor 1? Yes, you certainly can. So Hour of the Owl asks, do you have access to more manpower from additional provinces? So I'm guessing like as you recruit, can you grab manpower from other provinces and just the one you're recruiting at, or is it limited to just the one you're at?
Yes, there are ways for do, and one important thing, but we are not going to disclose this right now. It's the army and its main strength doesn't come only from squads. There are other factors here, but not yet. It's a different topic. Okay. But yes, overall, yes.
Okay. I know we answered this a little bit, but I'm going to ask you because I think it's just to clarify again. So Quint ENV asks, will individual divisions be bigger too? So bigger than Knights of Honor 1?
What do you mean?
The individual squads. The individual squads have more units. Individual
can be. They could be. Could be much bigger.
Yeah.
It depends how you set up your stuff.
Right. There's a lot of skills and other factors that kind of play into that. Okay. Yeah. So Massim90 asks, will there be fog of war on the battlefield, or can troops hide in the battlefield to surprise the enemy? In Knights of Honor 1, it was difficult to flank as all units were always visible.
Won't discuss anything about battles, I guess. Not that we don't have an answer, but we would like to have, if Brad also agrees on this, to have a bit more focused dev diary about those type of things.
Yeah, that's, I completely. I think the thing that would maybe worth mentioning is what are the things that we're exploring? What kind of are we exploring concepts where players will be able to flank or surprise enemies in the battle type gameplay? Are those things that we're thinking about right now? Or
flanking, yes, definitely, of course. Okay. We had it in the previous game.
I tried,
wasn't very
clear.
To
get him to say something. Oh, that's funny. Sorry, you were gonna say something else? Sorry, go ahead.
No, about the flanking, we had it in the previous game. Wasn't very clear when it happened. There was no visual or audio feedback about it. You feel it like it works, but the game doesn't tell you much about it. So we really are looking to fix a lot of those things in this one, but later about this.
Okay. Let's see. Let me grab another question here. So Nikolai Ristov, I think, I'm trying to pronounce the name right, asks, speaking of skills, you split them into primary and secondary, which suggests that there are many. Most will be useful, that's for sure, but what's your approach of balancing the, quote, weaker skills to make sure none of them are, quote, useless? That's a tough question.
It's a tough question. Well, when we design a skill, we always try to ask ourselves those questions. Why I need this skill? Why would I consider it? Why I would like it? And then if we come up with some reason, then the next question in our heads is, okay, is this only once? Is this only the beginning of the game? Is this a very late game thingy? Or maybe it's a situational? Then we try to analyze that stuff and give more reasons to the skills. We dropped many skills, by the way. They came on the table, we were considering them and didn't find enough reason for them to exist, so we decided to change them. However, our technology is extremely powerful in that regard, and we're data-driven here, so I guess modders can make their own skills to big extent. Maybe not absolutely everything, but they can make skills. And also we count on you people. Once the game is a living thing, at some point you'll know more, you'll talk more, you'll play, you'll give us feedback, and we say, okay, community is right, we were wrong, so we'll fix it. That's simple.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably, I think, when it comes to these types of games, and it doesn't matter how much you test and how hard you try and even in beta processes, as games come out and they mature, players start figuring out ways to use skills different ways, and that can definitely be a balancing act of trying to figure out and identify where those opportunities are and adjust the skill balancing. I mean, even look at some of the longest life games out there, games that have been around for 5-7 years. They're still experimenting with skill balancing and games like even World of Warcraft, right? They're still tuning things all the time. So it's going to be a constant adventure where it really comes down to how much you all get involved in the discussion with us and help us understand how things work as you play more and more, and so we can discover how to tweak and hone those things. So good answer. I like that. It's a hard question to figure out to respond to. Let's see. Let me grab another one from the community. Beldroth TV asks, we had visually 2 different types of castles in the first game. Are we going to have more this time around?
Yeah, many more.
Yeah. You've probably seen some of the concept art in the background of some of the different castle and visuals we've been experimenting with.
Yeah, many more. Well, not many, not like tens or thousands or something.
Oh, you heard it here. Veso's promising 400 different types of castles there.
No. We try to cover the most major regions in the world a bit more in depth. Yeah.
So, what? By the way, I'm not going to answer this as a question, but I thought it was a neat comment. Is it? I'm trying to read this name here on my list. Is it something Black? Sirius Black said, "Can you imagine Knights of Honor 2 to become the first strategy battle royale game?" That could be interesting. Maybe there could be some cool ideas there. Who knows? So I want to go to the question that was asked. This is a good question to end on. It was asked by just a random Stan that said, "What made you want to revisit the franchise, and how do you plan on keeping the spirit of the original within Knights of Honor 2, while still moving the needle forward, while still innovating?" It's a big question, but I think it's one that's Veso, especially with you, this franchise is very near and dear to your heart. I know how much you care about this game. We talk about that a lot when it comes to just even our conversations. What made you want to come back and do this again? Like, why are you doing this, making this sequel?
If we exclude my personal love for this game,
I don't think we should exclude that. I think you should include it.
Well, yeah, of course, but it also had to make sense. I mean, I believe it makes sense. There is a room for a game like this. I wonder why I didn't see anything like this, or in this real-time strategy, but also grand strategy and all that stuff. This particular set of features I didn't saw after Knights of Honor actually covered. I would say I didn't play every game on the world, but still. And also the personal thing comes. It's a I love it, and it's not only me. Other people with which I work also love it, and it's interesting thing. It's like going back in time, trying to do the same thing, but with your mind, which is kind of older and presumably more experienced. We'll see about that. But yeah, and I want to play it myself. To be very honest, I really want to play it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's something that you've said to me even back when we first were talking. It's that looking back at a project that you made when you were in your earlier parts of your career, and it's funny because you can look and go, man, made a lot of mistakes, a lot of things that probably shouldn't have done, and my older self would have known. Okay, let's do let's learn from years and years of experience. So taking that experience and leveraging it, making different mistakes, leveraging those years and years to to hopefully make a better version of a game that you love. So that's it's a great sentiment, and it's I think one of the reasons why and hopefully people have seen this from THQ Nordic. We like getting involved with developers that really are passionate and care about what they do. It's the way that we drive our decision-making process, and as the way we drive our release timelines, and one of the reasons why we're not talking about when this game is coming out quite yet. We're getting kind of a vague window, but we're going to let the game go so that Veso and team have a time to make the best version we can. It's about kind of making the games that we all want to play, and I think that Veso summed that up quite nicely. I think all of us that are involved in the project can't wait to play the game ourselves, and hopefully we do it right. That's what we're aiming for. Everyone,
thank you very much, Brad, for being so supportive and so great partner in this. I mean, it's a big pleasure to be part of that thing.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome, and I can't wait to play it too. For sure. Luckily for me, I get to play a new build tomorrow, so I get one up on all the fans out there. I'm playing.
It's
early.
Already uploaded.
Oh, there you go. All right, cool. So I have some fun later today. Everyone, thank you so much for joining the stream today. Hopefully you had a good time and learned a little bit about what we're doing on the project for Marshals and Armies. So our next dev stream, Dev Diary, is targeted for 4 weeks from now. Goodness, I should have had the date pulled up and ready to go. It's going to be on culture. That's the plan, right, Veso? Do I have that right?
Culture, kingdoms, how we make choices about what to include, what not to, how to name things, and it will be just a honest human discussion. You will see a new member of our team. I mean, the member is not new, but you will see it for the first time. And hopefully, if something doesn't happen in the meantime, so this stuff.
Excellent. So yeah, the Dev Diary is scheduled to go live on May 5th, so Tuesday, May 5th, and then we'll be doing our dev stream on Thursday, May 7th. Obviously, that could change. There's a lot going on right now in the world, and there's things that could move it around, but that's the target. That's what we're planning for. So go ahead and mark that in your calendars and join the community. We have community.knightsofhonor.com. We have our Facebook page. We have Discord. We do our best to post everything early, in the week, so you know what's coming, and you guys can plan your schedules accordingly, so you can join us on this stream. Please invite your friends, get them involved. We'd love to grow this community as we continue forward, and we thank you a lot for joining us. Veso, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Rats.
Much appreciated.
Stay safe, people.
Yeah,
Take care
please
for yourselves.
Safe. Yeah. Stay safe, stay at home, and we'll see you guys in 4 weeks. Thanks a lot. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.